Lincoln sat in the Santiago's living room, fidgeting ever so slightly with anticipation. Since it was Saturday, his parents had promised to take him out for a fun time in Dairyland. The loud boy was both excited and nervous. He wouldn't pass up a trip to Dairyland for the life of him, but being with the adults whom he thought he dispelled the situation easily brought him about his doubts that came with it. It could be stubbornness on his part, but Lincoln still felt some bitterness towards his birth givers. If someone like Lisa could fall for a simple hoax, what was there to say his parents wouldn't? With how readily they had brought in the rumor, it secretly shocked Lincoln how it was easy for them to treat him like he was just a random boy they found on the street, had been living with them since. Who knows? Maybe that was the case. Did his parents find him abandoned as a baby and take him in? He never found out why his hair was white. Lincoln sighed awkwardly. Sure, he could still be mad at his parents to a degree, but who was the one who helped him spread the rumor around? Who was willing to lie to his family over ridiculous circumstances when he probably could have asked for some me time? Lincoln felt as if a giant arrow had been pointing right at his face right now. Talking with Rita 2 days ago helped bring the more compassionate side of him back out, and he did felt a bit closer to his mother again, as she acknowledged the role herself and Lynn Sr. played. The fact that Rita outright acknowledged herself and Lynn deserved the prison time still terrified Lincoln. Just a week ago, he seemed to be certain about the blow whistle on his parents, but now his heart was just breaking just thinking about it. It was a question he didn't want to answer. Every few minutes, Lincoln took his focus off the TV to glance at the clock. Ronnie Ann and Bobby sat on the other side of him, eyes glued to the boob tube. Maria was working on a weekend shift at the hospital, but Marcus was working from his home office today. So having a little reason to trust the Louds, Mr. Santiago wanted to make sure Lincoln came back to his house safe and unharmed. So that better way to arrange the curfew? Ronnie Ann suggested that she could go with Lincoln. Naturally, Marcus refused to put his daughter in harm's way. Bobby stole a glance at Lincoln out of the corner of his eye, seeing the loud boy look at the clock again. Excited, bro? Lincoln nodded. In a way. I still wish I could go, Ronaldo huffed, grumbling from her slouched position on the couch. You know Dad's just trying to look out for you, Ron. I can handle myself, thank you. Roberto gave a very incredulous look. No offense, sis, but against 2 adults? I doubt it. Plus, if they kidnap Lincoln, would you want to be a part of that? Ronaldo then pursed her lips together. At least we'd be together, she muttered. Roberto smirked a little. It seemed Nene and Lincoln had got much closer than ever, so Dad said, No daughter of mine is going to be kidnapped, because if you do, I'm going to have to go to jail since by the end of it, someone is going to be dead, and it won't be me. Marcus peached from the office. Yeah, that, Bobby finished. The sound of the car horn got everyone's attention. Looking around the open curtain, Lincoln and the Santiago children spotted Van Zillet parked next to the curb. Well, here's my ride. Lincoln got up from his seat. See you guys around 7. Opening the door, Lincoln spotted his father in the driver's seat. The Partridge waved at his son. His mother gave a small wave in the front passenger seat. Not too big of a fan of a rush, Lincoln gave an awkward wave that was paired with a nervous smile. As he walked in the aging van, Marcus stood in the doorway to watch. The Santiago man gave a low glare at the parents, or more especially at Lynn. The loud father dared to look at him directly in the eyes, shrinking in his seat like a turtle in its shell. Between the 2 fathers, Lynn was older and stood a head taller, but he certainly wasn't any muscular as Marcus was. You could just barely make out the muscles that he hid under the Hispanic man's white buttoned shirt. Lincoln climbed into the van, sitting in the first row behind his parents. Lynn took off once he was settled, mainly because he got extremely uncomfortable with being under the gaze Marcus was still giving him. Even as they drove off, he still felt those brown eyes boring down in the back of his skull. The loud Partridge gave a wary glance of his left rear view mirror, just to make sure that he wasn't being given the 1,000-yard stare. You okay, honey? Rita asked. Yeah, I'll be fine. Mr. Santiago just gives me the creeps. Lynn Sr. shivered as he glanced at the center of the rearview mirror. Seeing his son, staring absent-mindedly out the window. "So, Lincoln, how you've been?" "Huh?" Lincoln responded instinctively, having been caught by mid-daydream. "Oh, I've been doing well." "Except for our trip to Dairyland?" "Well, part of me is. The other half?" Lincoln made an iffy motion with his hand. "Right. Something on your mind, sport?" Lynn asked, even though it was quite obvious. "Pretty sure there is," the 11-year-old replied with a half-interested minded, but of course Lynn Sr. didn't respond for a few moments. Keeping his eyes focused on the road, he glanced at his wife, who subconsciously jerked her head in Lincoln's direction as means to get him to continue. After all, they were a couple of things much worse the father needed to see on his behalf, if there was ever a chance that Lincoln might look up to them again. "Lincoln, about the day that Lana's Gator wrestling match." Lynn gazed down at the dashboard for a second. "This may not mean much coming from me, but I'm really sorry about how things turned out back then. None of us expected that Gator to get loose, but I'm glad you were safe before things got worse. I didn't want to think about what could have happened to you if you lost an arm or a leg." The Parsons looked at the exit signs on the road, finding one for Dairyland being 5 miles away. "I just hope you could find it in your heart to forgive me." Lincoln furrowed his brows a little. His dad was apologizing for the day rather being crappy the fact that he was nearly eaten. That sounded fine on paper, but there was something important missing from that apology. Lincoln didn't let his mind wander, recalling a few pretty much on the incidents that directly involved something around his parents. Most notable were the delays accidentally ruined by his mom's novel and the whole anniversary mishap. Beyond that, Lincoln was having issues trying to recall his personal moments when he had with his father. He wasn't counting memories, there were the rest of the family was involved, but just maybe the two of them, and it started to bother him when they kept drawing blanks. "Dad, when was the last time we hung out together?" "Well, besides Lana's Gator wrestling tournament." "No, I mean, just the two of us. Not with any of my sisters or even Mom," Lincoln clarified, looking back at his father's head. Lynn scratched his head. "Honestly, I think it might have been around the time when I was teaching you how to ride a bike." "But that was years ago," the boy said solemnly. "Well, I would have spent more time with you, but I've been busy with other things like work, constantly fixing up the house, and this darn van, managing bills and food, and spending time with my sisters." Lincoln cut him off, an irate look on his face. Lynn sulked at this seat a bit. "That, too." Lincoln folded his arms. "Here's another question I want to ask, Dad. Did you know that it was Take Your Child to Work Day when you took my sisters with you to your job?" By now the van was on the exit ramp to the park, which was just a mile down the road. "Wait, it's being stopped gender-specific by then?" "They changed it back in 2003. That was 3 years before I was even born, and there was even on that subject. And this includes you as well, Mom. But what did you guys have to do with the coffee mugs I made for your anniversary each year?" Lincoln wrapped his fingers around his arm. "I rarely see you guys use them." He already knew the answer to that, but he wanted to see what his parents had to say about it. The two adults in the front pale seats with the faces and mention of those pottery-made mugs, or were they paperweights? They couldn't tell how lopsided they were, especially around the open portion where the liquid was supposed to sit. The parents tried to formulate some kind of response that wouldn't just upset their son, but their constant stuttering made it very clear to Lincoln that they were going to tell some fib over their butts. The boy's patience had worn out by the time the car finally parked. He gave a frustrated sigh as he undid the seatbelt. "Just forget it." Lincoln opened the door and slammed it shut, stomping his way towards the ticket vendors. Lynn Sr. watched his son walk away before planting his face on the car's horn, in despair, not caring how much disturbance it was making. "We just got there and he's already mad at us. What are we going to do?" "Well, we're here at the park. I doubt Lincoln's in the mood to talk right now, so maybe after a couple of rides we'll loosen him up." Spoken with an optimistic Rita. The mother gave a frown at the unending beeping car that was protruding. "And Lynn, please get off the horn." Lynn Sr. lifted his face, seizing the noise pollution Vanzilla created. "Still he knows what we have done most of the coffee mugs." He looked towards his wife. "I mean, we still kept a couple of them. But I didn't think he would find them in the attic. How did he even know about that? That doesn't matter. What's important is that we show Lincoln how much he means to us. He then placed a hand over her husband's, as his parents. Lynn Sr. glazed out the windshield. By now, Lincoln was standing near the ticket vendors, his arms folded as he stared at the ground in the mixture of anger and disappointment. The Potash wasn't sure how he could make it up to his son now, but Rita had a point. They got this far, probably even a shrivel of luck that Lincoln decided to come out there with at them. At this point, it would be a waste to turn around and go home. Ling grabbed the steering wheel a little tighter. You're right, we can't stop this train now. We have, he checked his watch, 7 hours to earn Lincoln's love. By the end of this day, Lincoln will hopefully look up to us again. That's the spirit. Rita kicked something under her seat. Lane raised an eyebrow. What was that? The mother gave a warm smile. Oh, just back up in case it doesn't work. After getting out of the car, the parents warmly walked towards the vendor and purchased family pass. Lincoln held his forlorn look, but grew in confusion upon seeing his parents smiling at him. What are they so happy about? Lincoln wondered to himself. Rita extended her hand, which Lincoln reluctantly accepted, before he was held back into the park. The next few hours were spent with Rita and Liz Sr., taking Lincoln to rides or activities when they were certain he enjoyed. After gathering as much info as they could from the girls, who were fond of the place, they went to the bumper cars, the spinning teacups, a shooting gallery, a water ride, and even a roller coaster. They would have went to the milkshaker, but the line was way too long for their liking. After each activity, the parents took sneaking glances at their son to make sure he was having a good time. Lincoln was a bit apprehensive at first, but he eventually softened up, and not in a good way. He didn't smile at all. The boy went from irritation into depression, what seemed to be getting worse after each activity. The two adults gave a concerned looks at one another. They had gone through half the list, and Lincoln's mood hardly was in any improvement. Silently, they decided to stop for a moment as they planned their next move. Spotting the bench, Lynn and Lincoln sat down to rest while Rita looked around, crossing her legs over an area. Okay, boys, I'm gonna need to find a bathroom real quick. The last water ride really made me need to go even worse, the Monarch stated before running towards a sign that pointed to a nearby restroom. After watching his wife run off, Lynn Sr. brought his attention to his son. Lincoln had his arms propped up and rested his head on the open palms. The boy's nostrils flared a little as he breathed in. Lynn, hearing what sounded like a sniffle from the 11-year-old, he rubbed one of his eyes and feebled to attempt to expel the tears that were forming. Lynn didn't have to be a genius to realize that there had been something on his son's mind for the past few hours. Lack of communication would have been obvious, but it could have also been Lincoln needing to blow off some steam after they tried to lie to him. Since Rita wasn't around, this could be his best and only chance to have a real father and son talk. Lynn scooted over himself closer to the boy. What's wrong, son? Lincoln gave a small sniffle. It's nothing. Lincoln, myself and your mother knew you've been getting sadder as we went for each ride. It's very odd considering those rides you love going on. More than once, in fact. Not only that, but you're on the verge of crying. Lynn then placed a hand around his son's shoulders. I want to help you, Lincoln. I know we made you upset earlier, but I can't help you unless you let me. The 11-year-old didn't respond for a few moments. The only sound was steady breathing being heard between them, otherwise a noisy theme park. Lincoln cleared both eyes before finally giving a meek reply. I'm sorry, Dad. Lynn Sr. raised an eyebrow. For what? Sorry about what, Lincoln? Everything. I know you and Mom are really trying hard to show you guys still care about me, but all I did was act indifferent or sour about it. I gave my sisters a chance, so why should I deny you guys the same thing? Lincoln paused. Yesterday, Lori told me she was jealous how I've always had someone to help me when she hadn't. But what she doesn't know is that I'm jealous that my sisters can easily hold you and Mom's attention, while I have to try harder. Sometimes it feels like I'm the odd one in the group, well, more than I've already have. Even after you and Mom's anniversary, I still see some gifts that they got for you being used, and mine end up in the box in the attic. The pains of guilt tore through Lynn's heart at the mention of that. Lincoln, I don't think I would have found out if Lola didn't say anything about it. I was even upset at you guys at it earlier, especially when you tried to lie to me. But right now, I don't blame you. Those cups look pretty tacky anyway, and pottery isn't really my talent, even if I had one. Plus, I lied to you about being bad luck just to get out of my sister's activities, and look where it got me. Lynn opened his mouth to voice his opinion, but Lincoln wasn't paying attention and continued. At least, I could see why you hang out with some of the girls a lot. Lincoln started counting off his fingers. Luna has your taste in music, and Luann with her jokes. Lynn has sports. Lori, Lenny, and Lola can go with Mom to fashion advice. Lucy's good with... He bit his lip. I'm not even sure on that one, honestly. I know Lana comes to you for handy tips, and Lisa's smart enough to help you both. But me, on the other hand? Lincoln then glanced at the ground. All I do is play video games and read comics. Something my sisters don't even do. Probably the only thing we have in common is the fact that both of us are guys, and even then, we don't even have the same hair color. The 11-year-old fiddled with his signature cowlick. I don't even know why my hair is white. He put his back behind the bench, looking against the sky for the leaves of a tree. Mom said I shouldn't be blaming myself for all this, but I still can't help but feel largely it was my fault. Your mother is right, you know. Then, of course, Lynn stated quickly, before Lincoln could get another word in. The 11-year-old glanced up at his father. You lied, and you're not the one who said, please step away from the house, like you were a total stranger. Lynn shifted his position a little. Now, Lincoln, if you had problems feeling different, then why didn't you say anything about it? I felt that I probably wouldn't have mattered. Lincoln blinked his eyes, a stray tear escaping from his duct. I didn't even think I could go get my sisters about that cause they might say it's a guy thing or whatever. Probably would have talked with Lucy about it since she has similar issues, but she also has sisters that could easily help her out. I doubt my sisters would have any good answer to it, or even Mom. Then why didn't you come and talk to me about it? Lincoln pierced his lips as he gazed at his father. No offense, Dad, but I kind of doubt I get any advice from someone who's been passed out from so much Halloween last year. So I felt it was a problem that I'd be stuck with no one in the family who would understand. I guess what I'm saying is, I should have liked to have a brother at one point. Closest thing I got to that is Lana and Lynn, but they're still girls. I wouldn't tell them directly because they may think and take it as me not wanting any sisters. Lynn Sr. rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, Halloween still creeps me out. But you still could have asked me, though. Before you were born, I was literally the only guy in the house after Lori and Lenny were born. I was hoping we'd get a son soon. The man snorted. I guess you can call it every father's dream to raise a boy of their own. Luna and Luann came, and to be honest, I was happy yet disappointed at the same time. And then when Lynn was coming along, doctors said it looked like to be a boy, so I named her after me. His shoulders shrugged a bit. Unfortunately, the doctor misidentified Junior, and turns out she was a girl. Even though I was a bit upset by that, but I still gave her my name. Then almost 2 years later, you were on the way. I'm guessing that made you excited? Your father was practically dancing around the office when the doctor identified your gender, sweetie, Rita stated with amusement as she approached. Well, I had a good reason to. Lynn folded his arms. I was afraid I'd be stuck with raising only girls. Well, in the terms of being on the gene pool, you always felt a little short, the blonde giggled. Lynn didn't look amused. Anyway, you looked back at the 11-year-old boy. I would have been free to help you, Lincoln. I know what it's like to live in a house full of girls. And your sisters may not have understood, but they still will try to help you. It's like that kind of people of the same genders that tend to gravitate towards one another due to similar interests. Both males looked at Rita in confusion. I even had a few classes in psychology during college. The monarch shrugged. Lincoln felt a bit foolish, not realizing that he had help in front of him the whole time. Recalling how Lori once said that family supports each other, he originally thought that it meant well as came to ending their activities. Guess he's been so blind in his own self-loathing to realize the full meaning of that sentence. So Lincoln, I know you must be feeling dumb for not realizing it, but the biggest fool in the family is sitting right in front of you. Lynn pointed at himself. I was excited to finally have a son, but never took full advantage of it. Even more so, I made you feel like I never wanted a son to begin with. The father clasped his hands together. I know we don't hang out much, but that doesn't mean I love you less than girls. I try to have love my kids equally. He rubbed the back of his head, smiling nervously. Even if I don't have a good luck track record of showing it. He then put an arm around Lincoln. Like your mother, I've had many priorities messed up on believing this whole luck craziness. I treated you like you were less important than that stupid suit, when we should have looked the other way around. Heck, I still even hate myself for not even paying attention to the fact you were nearly killed, and I didn't even get a chance to see how you were. Lincoln couldn't lie. He still had felt some contempt on that incident. Not to mention we just sat there while you and Junior fought each other. Lynn gave a heavy sigh. You probably think I'm the worst dad ever. But you know this, Lincoln? You are my son, and I will always love you. I don't want you to think that you're an outcast in our family or doubt your surname, but you're still allowed in your very core, no matter how different you are from your sisters. After all, your birth was probably the most exciting thing out of our family. Lincoln raised his eyebrow. What happened when I was born? Lynn and Rita then looked around, prying eyes. It's something we're sworn into secrecy about, Rita whispered. Lincoln's pupils shrank. Wait, was I part of a lab experiment? Is that why I have white hair? He rubbed his follicles. The parents couldn't help but laugh at Lincoln, letting his imagination run wild. No offense, sport, but that's not even close. Also, your hair really does come from Pop-Pop. He was born with poliosis, which means the hair doesn't have any color, so it appears white. I surprisingly didn't get it when I was born, but I still carry the gene for it. I suppose it didn't appear to the girls until I had you. Rita scratched her head. Genetics are weird like that. Like how Lucy looks like my grandmother, hair and skin? Lynn Sr. added. Well, I guess that does explain the hair, but there's one thing that I don't understand. Why you guys nearly lied to me about the coffee mugs I made? Well, you were already upset, so we didn't know what to tell you about making you angry, and of course, we're sorry about that. Lynn crossed his legs. I know you said pottery wasn't your best trait, but at least you tried, sport. Also, we did try using you, but they could barely hold anything in. Lincoln gave a low sigh, sulking a little. I figured it as much. But we knew you worked so hard and felt bad when we didn't feel like we hadn't even made any use for them. So the first time you made those mugs, we went and had them redone. Rita dug into her purse, took out 2 Bundry-colored clay mugs. Unlike the ones Lincoln crafted on the inside, it was perfectly circular along the handle, being reshaped into a curved design. On the outside of each mug, there was an inscription that read, "From the world's best son," carved into the face. Huh? Didn't think you were into that back in the van. The pirate nodded. Lincoln had stared at the 2 cups, his mouth hanging up open and his eyes widened. How did you guys? We asked the local pottery to see if he could shape them up a bit. He said they looked like you hadn't let the clay harden all the way, which is why it appeared melted in his words. Lynn explained. He grabbed one of the mugs. I still drink from this one whenever I'm at work. Same here, although sometimes I use mine as a pencil holder. Rita smiled. Lincoln hummed a little in thought, then he shaped his forehead in frustration. Duh, I was in a rush because I always want to get to when your anniversary arrives. He folded his arms as he glared at the ground, and no one even bothered to remind me the last few minutes. He raised an eyebrow, looking back at his parents. But what about the rest? Both parents had their brows in disgust. That pottery guy was a real cheapskate, and he was the best one in town. We figured we might have put it up to rest in the attic, then waste that time with that jerk. Sorry you had to find out that way, dear, Rita told him. Lincoln shifted his gaze away from the few moments, before doing something both adults hadn't expected. For the first time that day, Lincoln managed to drive off a warm smile. He felt a lot better now that he had the full story behind the clay mugs, and more importantly, He felt the one thing he deeply missed for over a week: love from his parents. The day shifted with uncertainty and doubts that his parents would be able to sway in his option. But so far they had managed to pull that off and reassure Lincoln that he still had a place in their hearts. Well, at least I know we got a few to use, but where's the other thing I gotta say? What is it, Sport? Lynn Sr. asked. I know you guys may not be the best parents in the world, and some people might question on your habits, but I don't think I could have asked for a better mom and dad. Lincoln's eyes began to water. I used to think otherwise, but I don't anymore. I guess I finally realized it after everything that's happened. I still love you guys. It hurt me to think that you didn't. That was the main reason why I couldn't bring myself to call the police. And now I realize that you guys do care. Lincoln rubbed his nose and he sniffled. You really do care. At this point, the boy started crying again. They weren't tears of sadness, but of joy. Lincoln hugged his father, which departed returned his affection. Rita sat down next to Lincoln, ruffling her son's hair. All three lost basking of a glow like feeling a family again. Say, how about we get ice cream together to celebrate? Lynn Sr. suggested, to which the other louds nodded in approval.